Good evening, Europe, and welcome to Tuesday Conversation. Tuesday Conversations has been happening for the past year, and now we are starting the series in 2021. And we hope you'll enjoy the conversation we're going to have among four eminent Europeans. The idea is that we'll talk about subjects that are easy to relate to and that are important. And tonight's subject is COVID. How do we stay fit, sane, and well in difficult times? And I will be the moderator of the conversation. My name is Henningsen. I sit in Denmark. And I'll try to create a good conversation among participants. And I hope that Facebook viewers will enjoy our conversation. And you can also take part by putting questions that will then be fed into our conversation. We'll try to bring you into the conversation in a way that seems appropriate to you. So with that, I would like to go take a tour of the screen and let our participants introduce themselves, tell a little bit about where they are, and just briefly, and then we will dive into tonight's topic. So let me start at the top of the screen. Daniela, would you just briefly explain who you are, where you are?
Hello, I don't know if you can see me.
Yes, we can see you.
Maybe yes. Okay, so yes, I'm Daniela. I'm based in Rome, Italy, and I am a social media volunteer in Europeans. So tonight I will be sharing the comments from the audience on Facebook.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Daniela. And we move on to Søren. Søren, let's hear a little bit about where are you and who are you?
Well, I'm one of these world citizens, European world citizens living in Denmark. So that's about it. And right now my wife is German. So right now, these days, I'm in Flensburg visiting my parents-in-law.
Yeah, and you just had dinner.
I just had dinner, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. So
yes.
we'll get back to you. And Luisa?
Hello, everybody. I'm Luisa. I'm in Paris. I've been here since 2019, coming from the UK, and I'm Italian.
Fantastic. And we move on to Michal.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michal. I'm originally from Poland, but for the last 16 years, I've been living in the UK, just outside of London. I'm also married. My wife is Croatian, so we are also a very European and a global family, if you like. And so I'm delighted to be joining you tonight.
Fantastic. And finally, Virginia.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Virginia Fiume. I'm based in Brussels. I'm Italian, as my accent kind of can't hide. And I'm the coordinator of a citizens movement called the Humans. And I lived in different EU and not anymore EU countries, such as the UK. So I'm very glad to share this conversation with you tonight.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's start off the conversation. And I think everybody has to imagine that we are part of the European family. So this is actually a family conversation. It's 7:05, so it's an evening dinner. Maybe we imagine that we have good food in front of us and a few drinks. So good red wine. So that's it. And now the conversation to start with is about COVID. So tell me, staying physically fit during COVID. Michal, what do you want to say about that?
Right. So, I mean, such an important topic, and definitely in one way or another, it relates to each one of us. I try to walk a lot. I enjoy walking. So every day, every single evening, I go out for walks with one other person. At the moment, we are only allowed to, in the UK, to go out to exercise with another person from another household, if you like. I also try to walk quite a bit by myself. So I'm an early bird. So every Saturday morning when my family is asleep, I then go for a long walk. So this Saturday, for example, I did 12 kilometers, and I was really proud of myself. So I know that, Paul, you also walk quite a lot, because I can see your photos on Facebook. Yeah, so this definitely helps me to keep sane. I'm a very competitive person. I love football, tennis, basketball, cannot do any of this. So I had to find alternative way to stay physically fit.
Very good. We'll get back to that and dive into some of the things you think about when you walk. Luisa, COVID and you, what's your challenge?
Stay fit, a part of loads of vitamins that I've heard, and vitamin D, vitamin C really helps. I have discovered something fantastic, a new skill for me, that is the bike. So in Paris, there is this new scheme where during the coronavirus, they have opened Corona pistes, and they are safely cycling paths where you can ride a bike for kilometers around Paris. Since I didn't know the town, I didn't know Paris enough, every day is about 1 hour of bike, and I can visit a lot of places, and also knowing the less popular places in Paris. And then that really helps to keep me fit.
So you get to know Paris, the areas of Paris that you didn't know before, actually.
Yes, yes, it's true. Even walking, I think I cannot manage it the 12 kilometers every day, as Michael does. It's quite challenging for me, but at least in the radius of 6 kilometers, there's a lot of touristic attractions in Paris, and it's a very great opportunity to visit.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So walking and biking. What about Virginia?
So I walk less than usual because I used to commute walking to the office. So now the only walking is a lunchtime walk. So I have lunch and then I have a little stroll every day. I cycle, but the new discovery that COVID brought to me was yoga. I never thought in my life I would have been a yoga person, to be honest. But I discovered that it's quite nice also because it helps you to connect the mind and the body. So I think it's a good bridge between the physical well-being and the mental well-being. So that's my gift. One of the gifts from COVID was the discovery of yoga. Not too seriously, of course, but enough to feel okay.
So now we have walk, bicycling, and yoga. And Søren, I don't know. How about you?
Well, I think I cover both. Oh, not yoga, but walking and biking. I have my bike. I've always used my bike, and it's quite convenient here in Denmark because we are living in a very flat country. And also we're living in Aarhus, the second biggest city in Denmark. Still, it's a very small city, 300,000 inhabitants. So you can easily take your bike to get around. So I'm trying to kind of resist to get a car because I know once we get a car, I'll take it every time there's a chance. And then usually I have Fitness World, but that's closed down these days. I go to Fitness World together with our youngest daughter. And I also like to walk together with our youngest daughter because she's bound to the screen these days. So at least 3 or 4 times a week, we have a nice long walk. And she always has a lot to tell. She's talking for an hour and then...
That's great.
Hour and she's talking for an hour. And so that's nice. As long as the kids are talking, everything is good, so.
That's good. That's a good point. Let me finish by saying, I have rediscovered walking. You have an old moderator who played a lot of tennis and football when he was young, and that took its toll on his body. So I now am equipped with 2 new hips, and 1 new knee, and 1 new ankle. So they call me Bionic Man in a way, but I couldn't walk for many years, really. And now with the new ankle, I can now enjoy walking. So I'm part of a national scheme where you count how many steps you take per day. It's part of a national competition. And I was challenged by somebody in Copenhagen and joined, and it's great fun because then you have competition, right? You compete with the rest of the country, and every evening you log in, and you with pride you put in your steps, to see how you compare with the others, right? So I have on an average now for the past 20 days I think I'm 10,500 steps, which may not be very far for you, but for me, it's impressive. I mean, it's amazing. So,
Paul, you have a new body, so you have a slight advantage as well. Hopefully, you're going to win this
well, I
competition.
don't see how you can stand being with all your old parts. I mean, it must be terrible for you. So, but I mean, if we were to talk about more general about the challenge of physical of staying alive physically, what do you think sort of generally for people is a challenge?
I mean, I would say only from the kind of British perspective, if you like. Gyms closed, amateur sport as well is not taking place, so you can't play, football, basketball, tennis, all gym centers are closed, all the sports centers are closed as well. So people had to find alternative ways to stay fit. Definitely, I think going forward, issues around obesity and overweight again will definitely affect many members of our community as well, but that's not only in the UK. I think that's a global issue as well. So I know that also I've discovered a friend of mine loves fixing bikes, and last year when the first pandemic first lockdown started in the UK, he was inundated with phone calls, text messages, and and stuff like that, simply because people knew that that was the only way, or one of the ways in which people can stay fit as well. So you have to find other ways of kind of doing some sort of moderate exercise, because otherwise I think if your physical health is not in a good shape, I think this will definitely affect your mental and spiritual health as well. So it's really important to bear this in mind.
Yeah. Any other views on this, on the sort of the general state of affairs with regard to physical health?
Yeah, for me, staying plain air is fundamental. There have been time when lockdown in Italy was so strict that nobody could go out. And even for an exercise was not allowed. And I think that was really tough because at the end of the day, you need oxygen, you need to change air. There are other ways. We all bought in my family a bike. For myself and my mom, the bike you can do at home. And that I think this one can be done. I mean, they're not expensive, so can be done by everybody. And also there are amazing program online and of every kind of abilities. So from yoga really, or also from real aerobics as well. So programs online are really good to find, because also you can follow a program like different levels and can run at home as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot that can be done. People are making their own gyms at home.
Yeah,
investing in
you have enough space. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Søren, what do you? I mean, let me ask you a question, and I like to ask people, what gives you energy in your everyday life, and what steals your energy? I think we all somehow would like energy, right? Something. So I think a good question is, what actually gives you energy, and what steals your energy?
I think what gives me energy is to do stuff where I think I use my potential, and that could be in an academic sense, but it could also be practical matters. I mean, now I've had time to fix many of the things that we ought to fix at our house. I've been very, very busy for the past many years, but all of a sudden I've had more time. So I like to do craftsmanship and using my hands. Although I'm a philosopher by training, you wouldn't maybe not expect that.
No.
But I really like to do practical stuff, and the advantage is that you can see if you succeeded, right? You will get an answer from reality right away.
Yeah.
Did you do a good job or a bad job? So
you're a handyman.
I'm a handyman, and I just fixed my bike, so, and you will get an answer from reality and from the bike, so to speak, right away. Did you do a good job or a bad job? So I really like that.
Yeah. What steals your energy?
Oh, when I was busy in my organizations, what I really, really hate is do reporting. If you have had a project and you need to make a report, accounting, I think it's so boring. It drains my energy. It's so boring.
I think others can relate to that in the group here.
Yeah, I like to do budgets. I think making a budget is fun, you know, but the accounting part and reporting part and stuff like that, administration, code words. I hate code words, you know. If you need to spend time on finding the right code words and you type in the code word and it doesn't work, technical stuff that doesn't work, I mean, I get so tired, you know.
Yeah. Well, we sympathize with you. What about you, Luisa? What gives you energy? What steals you energy?
You mean physically or mentally?
Well, both, Anne. I mean,
it's connected, so.
Yeah, probably. So going out and see new places gives me a lot of energy. I'm in a sense fortunate because Saturday and Sunday we go to the countryside, and it's a full of castles with parks. So now castles are closed, but the parks are open and you can walk for miles and you can see new things you have never seen before. So that gives me energy.
Yeah.
What just drained my energy are the news on TV, because every time I try to find a solution and a situation is not easy. So, I mean, I close the border, okay, it's fine, I can do the test, then I can go. But every time I try to find a solution to move and go and see my family, the news on TV just put me back. And I think I drain a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like you do 3 steps forward and then you do 2 steps backwards.
Did you disconnect from TV? I mean,
you can on TVs, but you cannot live in the world without new regulations. See, you cannot know. I mean, at the moment, I see 3 news. One is 7 French TV, one is 7:30 the British news, and then the Italian. So because you need to understand what is allowed, what is not allowed, how the situation is going, and that is draining my energy a lot.
But you take 3 programs, just to be sure.
Yeah. Can you see the difference between the 3?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, a lot, particularly now that we had a new government in Italy. And you can see from different perspective. And really, I mean, I see people saying, oh, the Italian government was a circus, and get me very, very nervous. So yeah, you can see different things, and then it's interesting, how to say.
Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about.
Very good question. Yeah.
What do you say, Michal? About
yeah, it's excellent question, Paul. So I mean, it's interesting. So first of all, I've discovered I fell in love with writing. For work, I work in the charity sector, and I manage a relatively big project in Hertfordshire on behalf of residents. But because we are able to do so much less at the moment, I discovered a love for writing. So I write quite a lot. I publish different things in kind of different places. I published something yesterday in Liberal Democrats Voice in the UK about Home Office and New Settled Status Scheme, for example. So I really kind of, this helps me to come down a little bit, gives me a chance to kind of, put some of the stuff into some sort of perspective. And it also gives me a chance to read and deepen my understanding on certain subjects. That's one thing. I also enjoy reading. I can read a lot more at the moment because obviously our options are so limited. So those 2 things. A bit like Søren, I'm from Poland, and we often make assumptions. I have no manual skills. I'm useless. So if you have a problem with your sink, please don't call me. I don't think I'll be able to fix it. So kind of, my interests, are kind of in a way opposite to yours. What is draining at the moment my energy? Few things. Number one, maybe counterproductive Zoom meetings. We are, all having endless Zoom meetings, and sometimes I think it's difficult, to have a well-structured meeting with a good moderator. Maybe sometimes you think that you're spending, in a meeting 2 hours and there's no outcome, and I'm quite outcome-driven. And secondly, I have to say, from last week, a government announcement, one of the ministers, who is my local MP, member of parliament, said that we cannot yet plan our summer holidays. And because I'm from Poland and my wife is Croatian, you know, you're kind of, you know, are keen to see your families, because again, we live in Britain and we have to travel to two countries. And it is, I kind of realized last week that, you know, it's actually becoming quite difficult. I would like to put something in my diary to say, okay, on the 1st of August, I'm flying to Poland, for example, and I can't do it. And it really is quite, now emotionally, I have to say, tiring in many ways. You know, I would like to do it, so there's something I can look forward to.
I have a funny story, an interesting story about that. I got in touch with an English guy through a system called Lunch Club. Have you heard about that? It's a London-based initiative where you can get conversation partners all over the world. I mean, you sign up for a system, you say what you're interested in, and you have then a matching. You know, you're invited to conversations with people. And I've had so many interesting conversations with people. And there was this English guy in the north of England, and he had been making organizing travel for very, very wealthy people, you know, who paid generous amounts to stay at luxury hotels all over the world. So he's well connected with hotels. And now, of course, his business was, you know, disappeared because of COVID. And then he and a friend thought, okay, how we doing? What are we going to do? And then they contacted all these hotels and asked them, would you like to give a weekend to health staff, to NHS people? Would you like to give a free weekend? And they managed to raise 1.4 million pounds worth of you know, weekends, and they gave that to NHS staff. It was a fantastic story because of course the philosophy, you needed something to look forward to. I mean, that it was a wonderful present to get, that in the fall you knew you were going to stay at a hotel on a holiday. So I think it's a great story of inventiveness somehow, right? But also this, that we need something to look forward to. Yeah,
we do.
Okay, let's move on to Virginia. This issue, I mean, getting energy and stealing energy.
So getting energy, I think two things mainly. The first one is take the time every day to talk to the people that I love that are far away. So make sure that every day there is at least a quality long phone calls with someone that you like to have a conversation with. I think it's something that shouldn't be taken for granted, like take some time. And I live by myself, so this is probably why it's so important. But I think that's a key. And the second important thing that gives me energy, to be honest, is my job and what I do, because I have the luck of coordinating citizen initiatives and actions. In particular, one is for against climate change. It's called the stopglobalwarming.eu. And it's a European citizen initiative. And what I find energetic in that is that connecting with citizens and activists that participate in the initiative and working on something that could potentially have an impact is quite important. I mean, we are so powerless for a lot of things, like we can't really travel, we can't really do a lot of the stuff that we're used to do. So I think having the luck of having a job that allows me to connect with others all the time, but also doing something meaningful and measurable, because we need to collect the signatures and we see the counter going up. I think that's quite important in terms of energy. What drains me energy though, it's to be a lot on calls and WhatsApp messages. Like it's not the screen fatigue. I think in the Zoom call for me is that you are always on stage. So it's always a performance. And even if you're spontaneous and you believe in what you do, and I mean, but I think it drains a bit the energy, because sometimes you just need to not be on stage and being able to think or to be crazy. And the performance, the Zoom performance, I find it quite tiring sometimes.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, I mean, it's interesting, this topic of energy. Once I developed with a friend a model where there were 4 elements of an energy model, and the one element was food. I mean, to what extent do you get energy from the food you eat, and are you worried about what you eat, stuff like that. Then the second element was exercise. I mean, how much do you need, what do you do, how intensive, how little, etc., etc. So that was the second part of the model. The third was relations, that you get energy from people. You get energy, you look at your own family, you look at your friends, you look at your colleagues, and do they bring energy or do they steal your energy? You need to look at that. And the final thing that you mentioned is work. The work you do, does it satisfy you? Are you really enjoying your work, or does it actually, when you think about it, drain your energy? You don't really like what you do. A lot of people are in jobs where they don't really like to be. A lot of people are thinking about, could I maybe get another job, or not do what I'm doing? So that's sort of an interesting framework, I think. I would like to take a tour of the screen where you just briefly can look at the work, what you do. That I think, because you'd like to tell our viewers what is it actually that turns you on in terms of what you do. So, but just a 1-minute pitch on what's really important to you. And Søren, tell us briefly about what you've been fighting for many years, as I know it.
Yeah, I would like to start up by saying that those 4 elements that you mentioned there, Paul, I think they are spot on. I mean, those are good elements. You could maybe add society in general. I mean, do you feel well in your society? That could be, your national, in my case, the Danish society, and also the European and global community. And I think that's a long story, but many things to fix there. I'm a bit frustrated regarding my countrymen, that we are so focused on almost pretending that Denmark is the biggest country in the world, which isn't the case for sure. But I mean, for many years I've had a work very much in line with the new Europeans, working for the European Union, in the sense that I've tried to strengthen the European Union, democracy in the European Union. But after 20 years, it's came to a halt now. I need to come up with new ideas and find a new job, and maybe design my new own position. That's still to be seen. I have various ideas, but as we all know, it's hard to make things happen, right? One thing is the idea you have. Again, reality tells you something different sometimes.
But that's where we need to be smart about connecting the right people in Europe. I think that's really important, because there's so many good people around that have great ideas, and but you need also to find the resources to make things happen. I think so. But
and this is the weird thing, right? Because then you would say, okay, if you look at all the things that are funded in today's world, you would think that, okay, working with democracy and sustainability and making the world a better place, I mean, that should be well funded, right? It should be easy to find the funding for that. But actually, the opposite is the case, right? It's very hard.
Why is this so, do you think? Why is it so difficult?
It's weird. If you just take democracy, it's something we are ready to die for. If we don't have democracy, people are ready to die for it. But once we have it, seems as if nobody wants to pay for it. Mm-hmm. So it's a weird thing, but nevertheless, I think it's the case.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll get back to it, and then Luisa, what's your passion? What's your purpose?
Well, my purpose, I was listening a little bit more what Søren was saying, and because I didn't understand how is the not completely want democracy make you feel. We are fighting. I mean, I follow a lot of events, and we are fighting to have the vote for people that they are not. I mean, the EU that EU citizens can vote in another country, so to have full political rights. Mm. But I always have the idea how many people want to go and vote. So I think it's something Søren say. Everybody wants a democracy. Everybody wants the vote, but how many people cast a vote really? And then if you have the figures, you have the numbers, and probably what Søren said is really true. You fight. You want a democracy. You want rights. And then, is everybody ready to exercise the democracy? So just how does Søren make you feel this?
Well, it's sad. I mean, also on an overall level, I mean, democracy it's not something we do just for fun. I mean, democracy is a tool. It's a tool we need to fix our world, right? I mean, 500 million people in the European Union. So we need it's a serious tool. So it's not something banal if we don't have a strong democracy. It's something very serious.
Michal would like to butt in.
No, I just wanted to just one thing. I mean, this is absolutely fantastic and fundamental question, and I'm asking myself very often, why is it that certain things are not working? If you would argue or would like to have a conversation with someone about this, a particular topic, why is it that democracy in so many countries is not working? Again, Luisa mentioned a few things which are really close to my heart, which I hope I'll have a chance to mention as well. But I think essentially for me, what I've discovered also during COVID is that we are unable, I would stress this, we are unable to have a conversation and to actually, we are unable to listen to each other. Okay, for me, that's the bottom line. And I've learned in last year, unfortunately, I can talk for Britain, for Poland, I can talk quite a lot, but I've realized that the better listener I am, the better I'm able to engage with the other person. A person has a completely different, point of view than mine. I think inability to talk and to listen to the other person means that our conversation are fake, false, and wrongly interpreted, if you like. If I say to someone, I believe in European Union, but I'm not prepared to listen to the other point of view, then there is no conversation, and then that dialogue cannot be taken further. And this is how democracy is not happening. So in order for democracy to happen, I think we have to be ready always to lose my own identity, almost lose my own ideas in order to penetrate the soul or thoughts of the other person. I think that's for me fundamental. And I'll be honest with you, I've learned, this, I mean, I'm still learning it because obviously I have very strong political views as well. And to tell you, two other very quick things, I've learned two things last year, two sentences, which I think are definitely changing my life. Number one, in terms of listening, these days, more than ever, and this is why we have such a polarized, conversations about, politics, for example, is that we listen to respond and not to listen to understand. What a difference. Listen to understand and not listen to respond. Okay, so if you say I like Donald Trump as an example, okay, I'm already trying to kind of analyze what the other person is saying in order to respond to a particular statement. If I'm trying to understand what the other person is saying, this is how conversation and dialogue can happen. That's number one. Number two, what I've realized as well, Dalai Lama said something very interesting. He said that if you speak, it means that you repeat what you already know. If you allow other person to speak, it means that you have a chance to learn something. And these two things I'm trying to live, day in, day out. Very difficult, but this is definitely helping me to become a better citizen. And in terms of passions, very quickly, I'm an activist by nature, definitely. I think Luisa knows that. Job drives me, most definitely, and a lot of other things as well. And at the moment, interesting topic on democracy. I'm doing quite a lot of work in the UK at the moment with the Polish community, talking about political education. It's not only about voting, it's not about even going to the ballot box, it's really trying to help people understand how the system works, what are the functions of the local council, local authorities, parliament, European Parliament. This is the way to educate, myself, but also others, so they can make more conscious decisions when they go to vote.
I'd like to go back to the point that Povl made, because no, sorry, not Povl.
Oh,
Michal, sorry. Because I think the tricky bit of why there is not a lot of listening in democracy, apparently, is because there is a tendency to focus on democracy as the electoral and voting moment. And that, by definition, is a competition, which means someone needs to win. I mean, but I think what is fascinating, and I go to what makes me passionate, but I think it's a super interesting conversation, is I think we need to try to remember ourselves first and then to other people that democracy is a complex machine and there are different elements within that. And the reason why I'm particularly passionate about the instruments of participatory democracy and how they hook within the functioning of the institution. And I'm thinking about petitions, referendums, but also new forms of participation like citizen assemblies, is that they kind of boost the dialogue mechanism and the evolution of the public sphere and the decision-making process in a more dialogical manner than if you limit your vision of democracy to the electoral moment, because that is polarized by definition, aggressive almost by definition, because there is an element of winning or losing. So I think it's very important to me, and it what drives my job, which, as I was saying, is my luck, that is also my passion, is to try and explore ways to trigger political debates with the pride of saying it's a political matter, but trying to move it away from the electoral moment, which is of course important, but our life as citizen is made not only on the ballot days, but all the days in between, where we can actually have an impact, make something happen at a local, national, or transnational scale. But I think this complexity of democracy is something that deserves a lot of efforts and energies, but also because it's going to make our life better as citizens and the life of people that maybe don't believe in the voting moment, as Luisa was saying, to believe them in politics and democracy in a broader picture somehow.
Isn't democracy a mindset that happens every day? I mean, one would think that around the family table, you talk about democracy, right? I mean, who is going to do what, and how do you agree on what to do? And then you go to schools and you go to clubs and etc., etc. I think democracy is happening all the time, isn't it?
And it is a sort of a negotiation, I think, like you negotiate the power that you give to someone else to make decisions for you, but also I think it's a process, in my opinion, but made of different bricks and elements. Then a rule of law based democracy is something where actually what you do happens, or what you vote for happens or not happens. Like, I think there is an element of associating democracy to rule of law and certainty of your rights, certainty of your freedoms, and another element. So I think the combination of the two is quite,
but this is probably difficult because people only start fighting when they've lost it. You know, I mean, it doesn't seem that we're fighting for it as we move along, does it? I mean, it's kind of hard to get people interested or hooked on citizens' rights. I mean, everybody says it's right, it's good, somebody's working for that, but it's not something that you feel with the members of the local tennis club. I don't think so.
But I have to say, during the COVID, we had a lot of opportunity to know more what participation is. So Virginia said democracy is participation. It's absolutely true. And I have to say that we had a lot of opportunity to participate in lots of events. So Just New European is promoting almost every day an event, or directly, or through other organizations. Then they, I participated at least in 3 big events. In one of them, I met Virginia. She was a speaker. She didn't know me, but I know her now. So, and they're, even talking about new political rights, conversations like us, all this kind of participation was enabled only with the lockdown, because put us all together in places where it's very difficult to go as a private citizen or even as an organization, because you cannot go every time to Denmark because Povl is talking, or to Brussels because there is an event on the environment, or to Denmark because there is an event on democracy. And so I met so many people coming all around Europe. And the most important thing, I met a lot of young people full of passion, coming from different parts. And when you said where you taking energy from, listening to these young people full of passions, believing in what can be done in Europe, believing in new rights can be proposed, That gave me a lot of energy. Really.
I agree. Interesting.
Cool. We have some comments from the audience here. Not questions, but comments that could maybe become useful to you. So we have Mauro Ciaccio, who is congratulating Michael on the point about listening, not being focused on replying, and therefore not on winning the argument. And also saying that to go back to Brexit, it's a proof that it was all caused by the winner-loser paradigm, not about building a relationship with the European Union and more widely with Europe. And then we also have Roberto Mancuso, who points out that democracy requires something fundamental, knowing in order to deliberate. Without correct information, it is not possible to bring democracy to life. So yeah, you take out what you think is interesting from these points.
Okay. Any comments from the panel on these two observations?
I just wanted to add something else, if I may, very quickly. As you can see, I'm trying to control myself to speak slowly. That's number one, very important when you do it on Zoom. And number two, to be concise. That's also very important. You know what? There's one fundamental thing when it comes to conversations, which we haven't mentioned yet, and that is the language. And the reason I'm mentioning it, so Virginia, absolutely, everything you said is absolutely spot on. When it comes to democracy and civic participation, which is so close to my heart, we often, feel or think that, other people might understand a particular thing or particular topic or particular subject. Using simplistic and clear language is absolutely critical to embrace democracy as a subject, but also to make sure that we can reach out to people whose, for example, like it is not in my case, English is not my first language. So that's very, very important, I think, number one. Number two, also talking about conversations and, democracy and civic participation, I also think that I passionately believe that you have to give people options and opportunities to see how they can influence change in their local communities, local neighborhoods as well. That's really important as well. So make it almost a tangible experience of being involved in the process in the first place can help you to achieve X, Y, and Z as well. So there are a number of things, a number of platforms. To give you one example, only 2 weeks ago through work, I was running, absolutely love it. My second favorite, apart from my home building in the UK, is the House of Parliament. So the House of Parliament, to encourage people to talk about the democracy and encourage people to understand how the process works in the first place, they organize virtual tours of the House of Parliament. And that is absolutely amazing, so that basically gives people an opportunity to visit the place virtually as well via Zoom, and in that way people feel enthused, to be part of the process. A result of it, direct result, which is really I'm really pleased about. In 3 weeks' time, we'll be meeting our MP, Member of Parliament, for this particular area of Hertfordshire, where he will be grilled and ask a few questions as well. So we have to be creative, we have to be innovative as well, and we have to really keep believing in our mission. And the mission is to engage with people and make sure that they can also make a difference in their communities.
We have 15 minutes to go. Maybe we should change the conversation into talking about the future. I mean, do we have ideas on how to move forward? Now at the end of COVID and after COVID. I mean, what do we need to hold on to? What do we need to change? I think these are two vital questions. What are we going to hold on to from the past that we are not going to change, and what new thinking do we need? Can we maybe talk about that at the end of this conversation? Søren, what do you think?
Well, I think that's a very complicated matter, Paul.
You have to make it simple. We just heard that from Michal. So are you optimistic about the future, or are you pessimistic? I think I'd like to hear that.
Actually, I'm writing an article called Optimist on Behalf of the World. It's a John Dewey, the American philosopher John Dewey inspired article, in the sense that I think we are, if not jumping to conclusions, I think many people that know the facts about the world, they are jumping to optimism too fast, because if you look into the numbers, we are in dire straits, right? So what I fear is that some people are too optimistic too fast, and that will lead to a situation where there are some of the fundamental discussions that we ought to take that we don't take, and democracy is one of them. Do we have the tools to to facilitate and further the world that we would like to see. So that's one of the things I will be working on. I mean, if you look into the numbers, climate change and social inequality, poverty, and stuff like that, it doesn't look good, to be honest.
Okay, I mean, Luisa, optimist or pessimist, and what should we hold on to? What do we need to change?
Well, it's not we need to change, but for sure, because after Søren's talk, I don't know if it's the extremely optimist. You need to be with the foot on the heart. But I think what we have realized is that no country can have a decision that affects only the countries, but they are all interconnected. So bad decision taken in a country affected all the others, and in this we are all together. Mm-hmm. Bad thing I not want to carry on is the competition against the vaccine. So what I really despise is the classification of the countries who arrive first with the vaccine, because it's a scarce resource, and if somebody has too much, the other has too many. So even in a situation, I think it's not a competition. So we talk about competition, about voting, it's a competition. And this kind of competition with ranking, best country, worst country, without knowing what this is at the base. Everybody say New Zealand, fantastic. New Zealand has the same number of people than London in a country which is vast, huge. So all this number, they make different countries in competition. I really like something I don't want to carry forwards in future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, very good. And Michal?
Wow, it's a difficult one, Paul. I definitely, I can honestly say that I'm an optimist by nature, and it's just I kind of wonder, and I'm not going to pretend that I have all the right answers. Coming from Poland originally, I think that Europe at the moment is in a difficult position, if you like, in many ways. I think quite a lot about what is European identity at the moment, looking at the kind of, my vision of Europe and the vision of Europe in many people in Eastern Europe. Again, I'm trying to be very careful here as well. I'm not trying to portray people in Eastern Europe as people who are not believing in European project, but our visions of Europe are very different very often. So how can we build a Europe which represents us all? Is it possible? Is it not possible? So if it's not possible, what is the way out? So that's number one. Number two, in a global context as well, again, you've all mentioned competition, drive to consumerism, materialism. Will this ever end? What is the kind of the way out from it? I think in many ways, and again, is COVID telling us something, this health pandemic, that the world needs to have some sort of a deep and profound recess? And then if yes, what's kind of the outcome of the health pandemic going forward? Essentially, as I said to you before as well, I think fundamentally for me, I'm learning more and more that relationships, not fake, but real relationships, have to be at the center of our conversations at any level, local, national, international, European, and stuff like that. Only coming together, trying to, and I would say this in a really very, very strong conviction, where I'm also learning is not to live in my own bubble, also political bubble, and try to really engage with people who have different, views and stuff like that, in order to try to build a future, even if in my local kind of neighborhood, local community, which serves not only my personal interest but serves many more people as well. A lot of challenges ahead. I'm an optimist still, but definitely I don't think that a solution can be found overnight.
But I think you touch on something important, the relationship part, where I think technically it's so easy to do. And for example, in my local community, I'm thinking, what if I took 10 people from my community and invited 10 from Roger Casale's community in Italy, and we'd had 10 Poles, and we had 30 30 citizens, and then, I mean, people are not used to be part of sort of the European dialogue, but just ordinary citizens. And we bring them together on screen, and we make a program that makes sense to them, I think there's so much potential because of the technology of creating conversations among people who would never otherwise be together.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
Perspective, I think, but you need then courage to do it, and you need also somebody to take the lead and do it.
Yes, but also to bring people into conversations with different views as well. So again, as I was saying before, as well, trying to kind of only preach to ourselves with people, with people who have similar views, but also moderate the conversation, which might be challenging, if you like, but this is the way to grow as a community, us as individuals, as human beings, but also us as European citizens as well. And I think that is so important. We are not putting enough emphasis on it. And I think for me, in life, generally speaking, relationships, are at the center of everything. Without them, the world wouldn't exist.
Exactly. Let's move on to Virginia. What have you been thinking about? What do you want to hold on to from the past, and what do you think needs to change?
So I think, it's very difficult because we live in a sort of a permanent present nowadays, and I think it's healthy for our mind to think a bit in present terms, because otherwise you had either your expectations killed or so I think to be optimistic, it's important to stay in the present but this is a trick basically. But I think we can hold on to if I think about the present moment, to the opportunity that we have. So I think this is the key. I think we have a very, very important opportunity to change the system on multiple levels. I'm thinking about, if I think in terms of climate change in the broader sense, but I think we can now start to think about how reimagining societies functioning in a more sustainable way, because there is a bit less pressure, a bit less, so there is more breath to breathe, basically. So I think this is one element. In my opinion, from a political perspective, I think we need to hold to the idea of the Conference on the Future of Europe, which was an intuition that started before the pandemic, but it's also an opportunity to have European institutions and citizens discuss on two levels, on two speed. One is the management of the crisis, the current crisis. So for example, how do we manage a health union? How do we envision the management of data around COVID and best practice and medical trials and these kind of things? So I think the Conference of the Future of Europe, if we manage to make it happen, it's a way to discuss the emergency, but also to take the time and look back at the foundations of the European Union and imagine what is needed for it to be really sustainable, really right, really an opportunity for millions of people, not only the European citizens, but also the people that one day will start again to pass around the European Union. So I think the important thing is to think to this as an opportunity to make the quick change that we need to make quickly in terms of the management of what's going on because of COVID, but also take the time to look at the foundation and imagine what needs to be done to improve. So I don't think it's an answer that you can give now, but having the time to look back and in the future is an essential thing to be done in this moment and not wait when the pandemic will be finished. Because to be honest, as Søren was saying, it's really not that quite finished yet. And in the meantime, we need to be alive, well, and with our rights preserved. So,
but we have 5 minutes to go. Could we go a quick tour and then say, how do we make this conversation about the future of Europe to a true hit among everybody? 450 million people, not just a Brussels thing or Strasbourg thing. Do you have any idea? How can we? Is it possible to engage people? My wife's tennis club. Is it possible to engage them in a conversation about the future of Europe? What do you think, Søren?
Yes, I think you can, but you need an infrastructure to do so. I mean, it will take a lot. It will not drop from the sky. I mean, as you and I know, Paul, here in Denmark, when we, at the very early days of the Danish democracy, we set up an infrastructure. We had the so-called folk high schools where people are living together 24/7, not to pass exams and stuff like that, but to take part in common discussion. So that's just one of many examples of a democratic infrastructure. And that's the part we are missing in Europe. There's no infrastructure. So we keep our fingers crossed that this participatory democracy will somehow drop from the sky, which I don't think it will. So we need an infrastructure to make it possible to have very structured problem-solving discussions, because people would like to solve problems.
That seems a little long term, but if we now, Luisa, ideas for this discussion that's going to take place within the next year or so, or next couple of years, how can we make it?
I think we need to find a way to work at local level. And I don't know if in structure, I don't know if we can find focus group, but it's true then we have, as I said before, a lot of opportunity to connect, to have events and to know for people who speak English.
Yeah.
The problem is that not all the layer on the group of the population can be involved because of age group, or for different reason, age group or women that work that cannot take part in the activity, people that work all day, then maybe in the evening they don't want to have a Zoom. But I think we need to find a way to connect the local in different countries in a way then collect idea and then report together. If you don't do so in a level that it's something that other people decide for the majority, and it's not what the future of Europe can be. And then I think doing this is like working on conversation like ours. Then they can involve normal people to talk together, maybe at local level.
Exactly.
For me.
And Michal, and then Virginia, and then we finish.
Okay, so I have to be very quick. Two things or three things, Paul, very quickly. Number one, do we often reflect enough on Europe? Maybe health pandemic is giving us a lesson, and the lesson is to stop, look back, and try not to find solutions overnight. That would be my temptation, because I'm an activist. I'd like to find a solution tomorrow. Let's do it. Let's crack on with our job. Maybe being more reflective could help to find meaningful solutions. That's number one. Some of you have already mentioned, again, this idea is very popular in places like Ireland, citizens' assemblies. I think this could be quite a good way of maybe having meaningful conversations with people. And third thing, which I'm learning on Zoom and in the last year, is often not having, a bit like tonight, not having a specific agenda and being agenda driven, but having informal conversation, you can very often come to the best conclusions. Look at that. Nice and brief and concise. I'm so proud of myself.
Virginia, final point.
I'll be super quick. I'll try. I think the sortition-based citizen assembly is a key, because you get diversity. People that never thought about a topic to discuss on a topic with the help of experts and with a deliberative approach. I think the second thing is, I don't have the idea now, but we can have another conversation, but is to remind us what Europe means in the daily life. I make you a quick example, but I'm getting a divorce. I got married in the UK. I live in Brussels, but I'm an Italian citizen, and it's a lesbian wedding, so it's even more complicated. So I can say I've never been an activist for LGBT rights, for example. I've been an activist for other stuff. I never realized how certain rights are important until they get you. So I think it's super important to kind of remind each other outside of our bubbles where our rights end and finish in the European framework and where we need more rights. And everyone has a secret right that didn't never think he wanted to use, I think.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, guys.
It was a wonderful.
Thank you, everyone. And well done, Paul, as well, for moderating.
Well done, Paul. Very well done.
A lot, everybody. And thank you for the tech team as well.
Absolutely amazing.
You nailed it, showing how conversation can be inspiring, engaging, entertaining also. So I didn't...
It was so good, Paul, that we should do it tomorrow evening, the same time, guys. Do it. Okay, I'm up for it.
Thanks a lot, and it's thanks to you, because without good participants, nothing would happen. So thank you for participating, and I'm sure that we'll get back to this concept in future. So, but have a nice evening, and enjoy yourself wherever you are.
Take care.
Everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And
Bye.
thanks to the
Bye,
audience.
everyone.
And thanks to the people on
And the
social media
audience, the
channel.
tech team, and the speakers and the moderator as well. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.